identify words differently depending on their age and phase. The chart to your left shows you the age ranges that children are when they enter 4 different phases of word identification. 3 to 5-year-olds are in the pre-alphabetic phase. This is where they are using that environmental print that we talked about last week. So they can read logos and pictures, and there's usually print that goes along with those logos and pictures, and they're able to read it because they're in a very visual phase. And so this is that beginning stages of reading phase. They see a whole image, and as they move away from the picture part of that phase, just think about some logos we have that don't have picture support but have a special font. I'm thinking in my head the word Lego or the word Barbie, or I'm sure you can think of examples as well. Even the word Jeep, which I talked about one of those weeks. It has a particular font, and when they see that, they can recognize the word because they see the word as a picture. This can transfer, and when you look at the examples for the pre-alphabetic phase, we see that when boys and girls see the word yellow, they see the shape of it, and those 2 L's jump out at them. Or they see the word stop, and they remember it from the stop sign. So very visual, and they can be readers because they remember pictures, and it's basically memorization. Just another example, think of the word Disney and how many kiddos can read that word when they're non-readers. So this is the pre-alphabetic phase. They're not using phonics, they're not using letter sounds, they are just remembering pictures. Now, as they move into age 5 to 7, and this is kindergarten to 2nd grade usually, we're in that partial alphabetic phase. And this is where they understand how letters and sounds work, and they know that when they look at a word, they have to look at the beginning of it, and they have to look at the end of it. So we see the emphasis when they're reading words to the beginning letter and the ending letter. And this is where we see boys and girls do lots of good reading using phonics, but they also will make mistakes for words that look similar. Think about the word kitten and the word kitchen. Think about the word dog and maybe the word dug or dig. They see that beginning and the end, and a lot of times they just can't differentiate in their brains. I know my daughter who's a 5-year-old, and she's a reader, and she was reading the other day and had been reading the word apple in several different books for fall. And then later on the next day, she saw the word paper. And she said, look, this word is just like apple. Now, apple and paper really have many more differences than similarities. But in her brain, she saw that apple and paper both had an A, they both had 2 P's, and they both had an E. And her brain saw them as a similar picture. Now, she was far enough in this phase to say, I know these words aren't the same, but they're really, really alike. And this is because she is leaving the partial alphabetic phase and moving into the full alphabetic phase. But kiddos who are in that stage, they really see patterns and pictures of letter sounds. So we've moved away from just pictures, and we now have letters as important parts of our word, but we still have lots of confusion of simple words. Now, in the full alphabetic phase, we see 6 and 7-year-olds, and so these are mainly our first graders moving into 2nd grade. And this is where students match letters to sounds. And so they are stretching out words very consistently. What may kind of trip them up from time to time is where we have letters that don't make a sound, and that's where they have to start to employ those phonics cues. We look at the word clock, the C and the K go together, and so that could, some kiddos sound that word out. They'll say k, l, a, k, k, until they understand that CK works together. Also things like SH say sh and CH say ch. If they don't know that, they'll stretch those out as individual sounds. But they are giving every letter a sound in this phase. Now, when we move into the consolidated alphabetic phase, this is our 6 to 8-year-olds, and these are our first and second and maybe beginning third graders. And this is where they have a concept of reading pretty much every word out there that can be decoded. And this is where they look at words not as individual letters, like in our last phase, but where they chunk letters and sounds together. So we have in the word crate, in our example column, they see the C and R as a blend, and they see the A-T-E as a rhyme, we call it, and it's a word family, but we call that a rhyme, the back part of a word, and that's 8, so they can put it together. They also see the word share. They see the SH as a sound, and they see the ARE as a sound. So lots and lots of examples of how children move through these stages. What's important for you as a teacher is to be able to identify which stage your students each fall into, because you'll teach them differently, and there's special strategies to move them along to the next phase. Also, you have to monitor their progress, and that means continually informally assessing them, looking at what they're doing every day, taking notes, and occasionally giving a formal assessment if necessary. And then differentiating your instruction, probably in small groups, because your boys and girls will fall into categories. But if you have kiddos that are not in a group with anyone else, then you instruct them individually in this area. So this is important to know because the way they identify words really will determine how you teach them.